No one outside the Abbey knew what had just happened inside the Great Hall. The Queen had spoken warmly to Catherine. A moment of healing, a moment of peace. But now came the hardest test of all, facing the world. Outside, the crowd had grown. Larger. Reporters lined the street. Cameras were ready. Microphones pointed at the Abbey's doors. The nation and the world waited to see how Catherine would leave. Would the signs of unity continue? Would her face show relief or tension? Would the Queen give any further signal to calm the storm of rumors? Inside, Catherine stood near. Prince William. Her heart was still beating fast. The Queen's kind words echoed in her mind. A small smile touched her lips. But there was no time to rest. The final part of this day was about to begin. One glance at William told her he, too, understood. The hardest steps were still ahead. A soft voice spoke beside her, one of the royal aides. "Your car will meet you at the west entrance, ma'am. The Queen will be leaving first." Catherine nodded calmly, though inside her nerves returned. The world would be watching her walk out of the Abbey. Every photographer, every journalist, every curious onlooker, every smile, every gesture, every step would be studied again and again. Then came a soft sound. The deep creak of the Abbey's great wooden doors, a sign that the Queen was about to leave. Catherine stood straighter, her head held high, her hands folded calmly in front of her, her face serene. She watched as the Queen moved slowly towards the doors. The royal guards stood at attention. The crowd outside grew louder. Cheers rose as the Queen appeared. Catherine's turn would come next. Her heart beat faster. Would the Queen give one final sign? Would the story of this day end on a note of hope? And then it happened. As the Queen stepped through the doors, she paused. Just for a moment, she turned slightly. Her gaze rested on Catherine. For a single breath, their eyes met. The Queen gave the smallest of smiles, the same warm smile from earlier, not a formal smile for the cameras. A true, gentle smile. And with that, the Queen left the Abbey. Those watching inside had seen it. The smile, the message, quiet approval, acceptance. Now it was Catherine's turn. The doors stood open. Cool air flowed in. The sounds of the crowd reached her ears. William touched her hand lightly, sign of support. Together, they began to walk. Slowly, gracefully. Catherine's mind was clear. She knew this was the final test. How she carried herself now would shape the public story of this day. Would the people see a strong, united family, or would doubts remain? Her steps echoed softly on the stone floor. She stepped steady, breath controlled. As she reached the threshold, the noise of the crowd swelled. Shouts of Catherine, William, rose from the barriers. Cameras flashed in bursts, but Catherine's face remained calm, her smile gentle, her posture perfect. She paused just inside the doorway. For one moment, enough for the photographers to capture her face composed, serene, strong. And then, with William at her side, she stepped out into the sunlight. The crowd roared. The cameras flashed. But Catherine moved with steady grace, her heart no longer heavy with fear. The Queen's smile had given her strength. Step by step, she and William made their way to the car. A sea of faces watched them. Many were smiling now, sensing that something had changed. The cold rumors of past weeks seemed to fade in the bright morning air. As Catherine reached the car, she glanced once toward the crowd. Her smile widened, soft but sincere. A final gesture of connection. James, their driver, opened the door. Catherine entered smoothly, William following. The door closed. The noise of the crowd faded. Inside the quiet car, Catherine let out a long breath. Relief washed over her. She met William's eyes. He smiled. "You were perfect," he said softly. Catherine smiled back, her heart full. The hardest day of her royal life had ended in hope. As the car pulled away, the city streets seemed brighter. The mist of the early morning was gone. The sun shone clearly now. Behind them, Westminster Abbey stood tall, a witness to history once again. place where a silent curtsy, a gentle smile, and a few quiet words had helped heal the wounds of a family. And though Catherine knew there would still be challenges ahead, she also knew this day would be remembered, not for scandal, not for tension, but for a moment when respect, grace, and quiet strength had spoken louder than any headline. A moment when a future queen had found her place, and when a monarch had shown the world with one simple smile that family mattered most of all. No one could have guessed what was about to happen that morning. The streets of London were covered in a light mist. The sun had not fully risen. The city was waking up slowly, unaware that in just a few hours a moment would unfold inside Westminster Abbey that would be remembered for years. A moment that would change how people saw Catherine Middleton, the Princess of Wales, and her relationship with Queen Elizabeth II. Inside a black Range Rover, Catherine sat in silence. Her hands kept adjusting the pearl necklace around her neck. Her heart was beating fast. Her thoughts were spinning. She stared out the window, but her mind was somewhere else. This was not just another royal event. This was not just a memorial service. This was the first time she would face the Queen after the scandal that had shaken the royal family. For weeks, newspapers had been full of headlines about tension inside the palace. Private family conversations had been leaked. Stories of disagreement and conflict had spread everywhere. Catherine's name had been linked with words like controversy and rift. It had been painful, confusing, and public. Today, everyone would be watching, not just in the Abbey, but across the world. Cameras would be everywhere. Every move Catherine made would be studied. How would she greet the Queen? Would there be warmth or coldness? Could this family show unity again after so much trouble? Catherine had been awake since 4 in the morning. She could barely eat. Her stomach felt tight. Her phone buzzed in her handbag. Another message from her press secretary. It's probably another update about the huge crowd gathering outside Westminster Abbey. Reporters were already there with cameras and microphones, ready to catch any sign of tension. James, the royal driver, glanced at her in the rearview mirror. His kind eyes met hers. He had driven many members of the royal family for years. He could see how nervous she was. Without saying a word, he took a longer, quieter route to give her more time. Catherine closed her eyes for a moment. Her mother's words came to her. Be yourself. Show respect, but never lose who you are. She held on to that advice now as the car turned towards the heart of London. Ahead, she saw the tall towers of Westminster Abbey through the mist. Crowds were already packed behind barriers. Photographers adjusted their long lenses. The air buzzed with excitement and tension. Her assistant Sarah had chosen her outfit carefully, a navy blue coat dress. Simple but elegant. A pearl necklace that had once belonged to Princess Diana, a quiet message of respect for royal history. Her shoes were chosen for both grace and steadiness on the Abbey's old stone floors. Every detail mattered today. As the car slowed, Catherine looked. Out at the Abbey's entrance, she could see royal staff waiting to escort her inside. Her heart beat faster. She checked her reflection one last time in a small mirror. Her makeup was flawless. Her hair, tied in a simple bun, would hold through the long day. Then the car stopped. James opened her door. A cool breeze touched her face. The sound of camera shutters filled the air. The soft murmur of the crowd rose as people caught sight of her. Catherine stepped out, her heels clicking against the pavement. Her posture was straight, her smile calm but polite. Inside, her nerves were swirling. She walked towards the Abbey entrance. Every step brought her closer to the Queen, closer to the moment the whole country was waiting for. Inside the Abbey, the light was dim and golden, filtered through the old stained-glass windows. The ancient stone walls seemed to whisper with centuries of history. The air smelled of flowers and stone. The silence was heavy as Catherine moved down the long aisle. Her heart was pounding, her breathing steady. She remembered the lessons she had learned in royal protocol: how to walk, how to curtsy, how to show grace under pressure. But today, it was more than just following the rules. Today, this curtsy could send a message about respect, about unity, about her place in the royal family. As she neared Queen Elizabeth II, every eye in the Abbey turned towards her. The silence grew deeper. Time seemed to slow. Catherine lowered herself into a curtsy. Slowly, gracefully, her navy blue dress flowed. Softly around her, her head bent in respect, her body perfectly still. But then something unexpected happened. She did not rise right away. She held the curtsy. Seconds passed. The silence in the abbey grew heavier. Every person in the room felt it. This was not just a simple gesture anymore. Catherine was making a statement, a deep, silent message of loyalty and respect. Queen Elizabeth II watched her closely. Got the Queen's face, so often calm and unreadable, began to soften. Her eyes showed warmth, perhaps even pride. Still, Catherine held the curtsy. Her muscles strained slightly. Her heart beat fast, but she stayed still. Her message clear. The royal family members noticed. Prince Charles's face showed quiet approval. Princess Anne gave a small nod. Even the younger royals sat still, sensing that something important was happening. Finally, Catherine rose slowly. She met the Queen's eyes. Strong, calm, honest, and in that moment, the Queen smiled. A real smile, warm, proud, and in that silent exchange, something powerful had changed. The whole world would soon know it. Everyone in Westminster Abbey had witnessed it. It's a long curtsy, the Queen's rare, warm smile. But the story was far from over. Outside, crowds waited for news. Inside, though the service was about to begin, all eyes remained on Catherine. Everyone wondered what would happen next. Would the Queen speak to her? Would there be more signs of unity? Or would the tension return? No one could guess. Catherine felt her heart still racing as she slowly moved toward her seat. And calm, but inside, her mind was still spinning. The moment of the curtsy had passed, but she knew that the hardest part of the day might still be ahead. Every member of the royal family was watching her closely. They had seen the Queen's smile. They had seen the meaning behind Catherine's silent message of loyalty. But no one yet knew how the Queen might act after this very public moment. Prince William gave Catherine a small, encouraging glance. His eyes said it all. "You did well. I'm proud of you." Catherine gave the smallest of smiles in return. But there was no time to relax. As the organ music began to play softly, signaling that the service was about to start, a hush fell over the abbey. The ancient stone walls seemed to hold the weight of history, of old secrets and new hopes. Everyone sat still, waiting. Catherine sat near Prince William, her hands folded carefully in her lap. Her breathing slowed, but her mind stayed sharp. She could feel the tension in the air, thick, like the mist that had hung over London that morning. She glanced down the row. Queen Elizabeth II sat in her usual place at the front. The Queen's face had returned to its calm, royal expression. But something in her eyes had changed. Softness, a warmth, remained. Was this a sign that the Queen would forgive the recent troubles? Would the public see this as a return to royal unity? Or would old wounds remain hidden behind smiles and formal gestures? These questions filled the minds of everyone in the Abbey, and of millions watching from around the world. The memorial service began. The deep voice of the priest echoed through the great hall, speaking words of remembrance for the fallen soldiers. The choir sang, their voices rising to the vaulted ceiling. But even as the service unfolded, Catherine remained aware of the unspoken tension between generations. She could feel the eyes of the royal family, of the guests, of the cameras. She knew that this day would not be judged by the speeches or the music. It would be judged by her next steps, her next moments with the Queen, as the prayers continued. Catherine's mind returned to her mother's advice: be yourself, show respect, but do not lose who you are. Today, she had tried to follow those words. But now, she would need more than grace. She would need strength. The next part of the service approached, the laying of the wreaths. A solemn ritual where members of the royal family and military leaders would place wreaths of red poppies at the foot of the memorial. It was a moment of deep meaning, not only to honor those who had died for the country, but also a moment when Catherine would once again stand near the Queen, another chance to show unity, another moment the world would watch closely. Catherine's heart beat faster as the priest called the names of those who would lay the wreaths. Her name was among them. So was the Queen's. They would both rise soon. The congregation watched. Silently, every movement seemed to echo in the grand space. The Queen stood first. Her steps were steady, her posture straight. She carried her wreath carefully, her face calm and composed. Then it was Catherine's turn. Slowly she rose. Her breath caught for a moment. She steadied herself. With care, she picked up her wreath, the red poppies bright against the navy blue of her dress. As she began walking down the aisle, her steps echoed on the stone floor. The abbey was silent, except for the soft sound of her heels. People leaned forward slightly, watching closely. What would happen as she approached the Queen again? Would the Queen acknowledge her? Would there be a gesture, a glance, or nothing at all? Catherine's heart pounded with each step. The distance between her and the Queen closed slowly. The weight of history seemed to press down on her shoulders. At last, she reached the memorial. The Queen stood nearby, her head bowed slightly in thought. Catherine lowered her wreath with great care. Her movements were graceful, respectful. She stayed still for a moment, her head bowed in silent prayer. Then a breathless pause. The Queen turned, her gaze resting on Catherine. For a long moment their eyes met. A quiet understanding passed between them. No words were spoken, but in that silent exchange something was mended, something long hoped for by the family and by the nation. And then, in a move that would surprise everyone, the Queen gave the smallest, most gentle nod toward Catherine. Subtle, but unmistakable. A sign of warmth, a sign of peace. The crowd in the abbey seemed to breathe again. The moment had been seen by all and would be remembered. Catherine felt a wave of relief. But the day was not over. Not yet. More was still to come, and she would need every bit of strength to face it. Everyone had seen it, the Queen's gentle nod to Catherine. A tiny movement, but one that carried great meaning. It was a sign of peace, a sign of forgiveness. But the day was not finished. There was still one moment that everyone in Westminster Abbey and everyone watching on television was waiting for. Would the Queen and Catherine speak to each other? Would there be a real moment of connection? Something that would end weeks of worry and rumors? No one knew, and no one could look away. Catherine felt her heart still beating fast. She had laid the wreath. The Queen had nodded to her. But the service was not over. Soon would come the hardest part, the private gathering after the service. It would be in the Abbey's great hall, a smaller, more personal space. The royal family would stand together. There would be quiet conversation, handshakes, polite smiles, and possibly at last, words between Catherine and the Queen. The media had already guessed this might happen. Cameras would not be allowed in that space, but dozens of reporters waited outside, ready to report any whispers they could catch. The tension outside was rising. Inside the Abbey, it was no different. As the final hymn ended, the congregation slowly stood. The deep voice of the priest blessed the crowd. The organ music echoed across the stone walls. Memorial service was complete. But for Catherine, the most difficult moment was just beginning. Prince William looked at her and gave a small nod. His hand brushed hers gently. He knew how hard this day had been for her, and he knew what this next moment meant. The royal family began to move towards the great hall. Catherine walked beside William, her steps careful, her face calm, but inside her nerves were sharp. In the hall, the family gathered in a small circle. The Queen stood at the center, as always. Around her were Prince Charles, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, Camilla, and other senior royals. They spoke quietly, their voices low. The mood was formal. Serious Catherine and William stood slightly apart, waiting for the right moment to approach. This was how it worked. Respect for the Queen came first. They could not simply walk up to her. They would wait for her to give a sign. Minutes passed. The Queen spoke softly with Charles, then with Anne. She gave a polite smile here, a gentle nod there. But she had not yet looked at Catherine. The silence in Catherine's mind was louder than the voices in the room. Was the Queen angry after all? Was the earlier smile just for the cameras? Had Catherine done enough to show her respect? Her breathing stayed steady, but her chest felt tight. The whole future of her role in the family seemed to hang in this. One small moment. Then it happened. The Queen turned her head. Her eyes rested on Catherine. For a long second, there was only silence. Time seemed to stop. Then the Queen made a small, graceful movement with her hand. A sign. An invitation. Prince William gave the tiniest of nods. Catherine understood. It was time. She stepped forward slowly, her heart pounding. The hall seemed to fade around her. Every face, every voice blurred. All that mattered was the Queen. Catherine stopped a few steps away. She gave another deep curtsy, not held long this time, but full of grace. She rose slowly and met the Queen's eyes. For a second, neither spoke. The silence stretched. Those standing nearby watched closely, holding their breath. Would the Queen say anything? Would she show warmth or distance? Then the Queen smiled, a real warm smile, the kind only her family truly saw. And then quietly she spoke. "It is good to see you, Catherine." Her voice was soft but clear. The words were simple, but to Catherine they meant everything. It was a sign not just for her, but for everyone. The Queen had accepted her gesture, her loyalty. The rift was healing. Catherine felt her breath catch. She smiled softly. "It is an honor, Your Majesty," she replied, her voice steady. It was only a few words, but those words would echo far beyond that small hall. The Queen had spoken to her, had smiled, had welcomed her again. The royal family members nearby relaxed slightly. Charles's shoulders lowered. Anne gave a small nod. Even Camilla's face showed quiet approval. They all understood what this meant. Outside, the reporters sensed a change. Though they could not see inside the hall, they would soon hear what had happened. The story would spread. The photographs from earlier, the Queen's nod. And now the whispered news that she had spoken warmly to Catherine, it would be tomorrow's headline. But inside the hall, Catherine felt only relief. She had faced the Queen. She had shown her heart, and the Queen had answered with kindness. Still, as she stepped back beside William, she knew the day was not over. There was still the long walk from the Abbey, still the crowds, still the press, and in the days to come, the story would grow. But for now, something had changed, and Catherine could breathe a little easier.